A group of military men arrives in the mountains of Costa Rica, accompanied by Dr. Michael Morbius, who is on a mission to cure his rare illness that affects his ability to walk. He sets up a trapping pod, and upon reaching a cave, he cuts his hand to use his blood as bait for the bats inside. As the bats swarm into the trap, the team panics and runs, but Morbius remains still, waiting. The story then flashes back 25 years earlier to a hospital in Greece, where 10-year-old Michael Morbius lives. Dr. Nicholas introduces him to a new patient, Lucian, whom Michael renames Milo. They bond over their shared blood disorder and their wish to be normal. While they talk, Milo's medical machine suddenly malfunctions, but Michael quickly uses a pen to fix it, saving Milo. Recognizing Michael's talent, Dr. Nicholas arranges for him to attend medical school in New York while he stays behind to care for Milo. Morbius agrees to go, but only after Nicholas promises to look after Milo. Before leaving, Michael writes a letter to Milo, promising to find a cure for their condition. However, as Milo retrieves the letter after it falls from his window, he is confronted by a group of bullies who begin mocking him. They eventually attack him, but Dr. Nicholas arrives just in time to intervene and stop them. 25 years later, Morbius earns his doctorate and develops artificial blood, saving millions of lives. The King of Sweden offers him a Nobel Prize for his achievement, but Morbius publicly declines it. He feels undeserving because he discovered the artificial blood by accident while searching for a cure for his own condition. Back in the present, Morbius returns to work at the hospital, where his colleague Martine Bancroft approaches him. While running tests on him, she brings up his secret project to mix his DNA with bat DNA, which is being funded by Milo. Morbius pretends not to know what she's talking about, but Martine reveals she is aware that he has secretly captured dozens of vampire bats from Costa Rica, hoping to splice their genes with his own to cure his condition. He finally admits the truth. These bats are the only mammals that feed on blood, and their special saliva might hold the key to curing both his illness and Milo's. However, Martine is skeptical, concerned about the ethical risks of such an experiment. Morbius proceeds with the experiment and tests the serum on a lab rat, but the rat dies. At that moment, a patient suffers a seizure, so Morbius and Martine rush to help her, ultimately inducing a coma to prevent a stroke. When Martine glances back at the lab, she is shocked to see the once-dead rat moving again, proving that the serum works. Later, Morbius meets Milo and shares his breakthrough, requesting funding since the experiment is illegal. Milo quickly arranges for Morbius to conduct his trial aboard a private mercenary ship in international waters. Morbius brings Martine along for assistance and successfully creates a more advanced serum. Martine injects it into his spine and straps him down as his body starts convulsing. Just then, a crew member enters to check on them. As Martine argues with him to leave, Morbius suddenly breaks free. When she and the guard enter the isolation room, they are horrified to see Morbius crawling on the ceiling with a monstrous appearance. The guard fires at him, but Morbius moves at superhuman speed, attacking and killing him while ignoring Martine's desperate pleas to stop. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blares, causing Morbius extreme pain due to his heightened senses. Panicking, he begins smashing the glass. The rest of the security team arrives, and despite Martine's attempts to stop them, they push her aside, knocking her unconscious. Morbius breaks free and showcases his new vampire-like abilities, dodging bullets and moving at incredible speed. Overcome by bloodlust, he kills and drains the crew members who attack him out of fear. Once his thirst subsides and he regains control, he checks on Martine. Horrified by what he has done, he erases all CCTV footage before contacting authorities. He then takes his serum and jumps overboard into the sea. The next morning, 2 FBI agents arrive to investigate the crime, but all footage has been deleted, and Martine remains unconscious. The case soon makes headlines, catching the attention of Nicholas and Milo. Sometime later, Morbius returns to New York. After checking on his patient at the hospital, he heads to his lab and leaves the serums. However, his body begins to fail again, so he rushes to the fridge and drinks the artificial blood he created, allowing him to feed without killing anyone. He then starts testing his abilities and discovers he has superhuman strength, speed, and agility. When he enters the tank, the vampire bats treat him as one of their own, making him feel a deep connection with them. He also realizes he has developed echolocation, similar to a bat, and tests it by throwing and catching a ball with his eyes closed. Unfortunately, his powers only last as long as he feeds. The artificial blood stabilizes him for 6 hours, but the time is decreasing, and he knows he will eventually need real blood. To test this, he locks himself in an isolated room. A few hours later, Milo visits and finds him extremely weak. Morbius writes on the glass, asking for blood, so Milo brings him some from the freezer. As soon as he feeds, Morbius regains his strength, and Milo is amazed. However, when Milo asks to be injected with the serum, Morbius refuses, calling it a curse. When Milo insists, Morbius becomes aggressive and forces him to leave. At the hospital, Martine wakes up and is visited by FBI agents Simon Stroud and Al Rodriguez. They show her disturbing photos of the bodies from the ship, but she pretends not to remember what happened. Later that night, a nurse working late notices the lights flickering and starts running in fear, but she is caught and killed by a vampiric creature. When her body is found the next morning, Morbius is just as shocked as his co-workers and begins to suspect he might have done it. He tries to control his bloodlust by consuming artificial blood, but it is becoming less effective. As he attempts to leave, FBI agents confront him with questions about his experiments and decide to arrest him. Morbius instinctively defends himself, easily knocking them down, then escapes at high speed, dodging bullets as he climbs the stairs. When he reaches the rooftop, he is surprised to feel the wind from an AC unit much stronger than before, but before he can figure out why, the FBI catches him. At the Manhattan Detention Center, Morbius studies his notes and realizes his feeding time has decreased from 6 hours to 4. When interrogated, the agents bring holy water and accuse him of the ship murders. Morbius starts losing control and begs for his artificial blood, but they don't take him seriously and send him back to his cell. Milo visits him in prison, offering support and bringing a pack of artificial blood. However, when Milo leaves, Morbius notices he forgot his walking stick, realizing that Milo must have taken the serum. He now understands that Milo killed the nurse. As Milo leaves, he no longer pretends to be weak and walks away with perfect reflexes. Angry, Morbius drinks the blood, transforms, and escapes through the cell window. He uses his echolocation and hears Milo attacking a newspaper seller. Rushing to the scene, Morbius confronts Milo in the street, calling him a monster. But Milo, thrilled with his newfound power, insists that he finally feels free after years of struggling. He attacks Morbius and knocks him aside. Later, at the train station, the two fight fiercely, causing panic among the citizens. Morbius promises to find a cure, but Milo, enjoying his power, kills a group of security officers who try to intervene. Enraged, Morbius attacks again. As a train approaches, he senses the fast-moving air and uses it to leap in front of the train, gliding through the tunnels to escape. The next day, Martine senses someone following her through the city. She enters a store and sneaks out the back, only to realize it's one of the FBI agents. She takes a bus, where she sees that Morbius is now a wanted man. Suddenly, he appears behind her. She listens as he explains that he didn't kill the nurse, Milo did. They stop at a cafe, where Morbius overhears two criminals discussing a lab. He asks Martine for supplies and then secretly follows them. After taking artificial blood that Martine brought, Morbius tracks the thugs to an unfinished building where they are running a counterfeit money operation. He politely asks them for their lab equipment, but when they try to attack him, he easily overpowers them, forcing them to flee. He then uses parts of their machines to build the devices he needs. Meanwhile, Milo prepares for a night out. At a nightclub, he flirts with a woman, but another man forcefully pulls her away and pushes him aside. Milo controls himself and leaves, but he waits outside. When the man and his friends exit, Milo kills them all. Later, Martine visits Morbius's hospital lab to retrieve some things, but is confronted by Milo, who asks where Morbius is. She lies, saying she doesn't know, and Milo leaves without causing trouble. Meanwhile, the FBI agents break into Martine's apartment, looking for clues about Morbius, but neither she nor her cat is there. It is revealed that Martine is hiding with Morbius at his new lab, along with her cat. While trying to feed the cat, she accidentally cuts herself. Morbius sees her blood and struggles to resist the urge to attack. Later, Morbius and Martine share a moment on the rooftop and kiss, unaware that Milo is watching them. The next day, the FBI finds the bodies of the men killed outside the bar. After reviewing CCTV footage, they realize that Milo, not Morbius, was responsible. Nicholas sees the news and confronts Milo, begging him to stop killing people. However, Milo, tired of being controlled, accuses Nicholas of always favoring Morbius. Enraged, he attacks Nicholas, leaving him severely wounded. Meanwhile, Morbius develops an anti-cure for vampirism and prepares 2 doses, one for himself and one for Milo. Just then, he receives a call from Nicholas, who is barely holding on. Morbius rushes to Milo's apartment and finds Nicholas on the verge of death. Before passing away, Nicholas pleads with Morbius to stop Milo. At the same time, Milo kidnaps Martine and forces her to call out Morbius's name until he hears it. Using his echolocation, Morbius tracks them down and flies through the city to find Martine bleeding on a rooftop. She urges him to feed on her so her death will have meaning, but instead, Morbius kisses her. A drop of his blood falls into her mouth just before she dies. Overcome with grief, Morbius finally gives in and feeds on her. Milo appears on the rooftop, and Morbius immediately lunges at him. They both fall off the edge, fighting viciously as they crash through buildings before plummeting again. Milo lands a few strong blows, sending Morbius crashing onto a platform. Dragging Morbius by the legs, Milo throws him into a glowing sign, then smashes him through a building, sending them both crashing into a tunnel. As Milo laughs maniacally, Morbius summons a powerful echolocation wave through the tunnels and places his hands in the water. Suddenly, an army of bats swarms to his aid, lifting him up. When Milo tries to kill him with a metal rod, Morbius commands the bats to attack, restraining Milo. Taking his chance, Morbius injects Milo with the anti-cure, causing him to revert to his human form. In his final moments, Milo apologizes before dying. Just then, the FBI arrives, but Morbius blends into the swarm of bats and flies out of the tunnel. Meanwhile, back in the tunnel, Martine wakes up, now revealed to be a vampire as well. Sometime later, a strange event occurs, and Spider-Man's enemy, Vulture, mysteriously appears in a local prison. Since he comes from another universe, no one knows him, and the authorities release him. Soon after, Vulture rebuilds his suit and approaches Morbius, suggesting they team up. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more movie recaps.